"What's a guy from the streets doing in my octagon?" Ethan sneered, strutting beneath the glaring lights of the Chicago Combat Center. Sweat gleamed on his torso as he circled, flashing a grin for the flashes, convinced he'd demolish his rival in moments. Opposite him was Darius Williams, serene, poised, gaze firm and impenetrable. To Ethan, he seemed innocuous, merely another neighborhood kid fortunate to step into the glare. What he overlooked was that Darius had been tempered in genuine conflicts where errors claimed lives, not accolades. The chime sounded once. 10 seconds on, Ethan sprawled motionless on the mat. "Before we proceed, drop a comment with your location worldwide and hit subscribe, as tomorrow's tale is unmissable." The venue throbbed like a heartbeat. 20,000 pulses syncing to the thump of heavy bass intros. Beams sliced pale rings through staged mist as Ethan, Rattler, Hayes paraded down the extended aisle to the octagon. He sported a gaudy silver necklace, twirling it for the lenses while his crew barked with amusement. In the red corner, Darius Williams remained utterly motionless. The recognizable aroma of menthol rub invaded his senses as Jamal, Aunt Clara's kin, meticulously bound his fists with red gauze. Each loop was a contemplation, a ceremony inherited through academies over eras. "You set, Uncle Darius," Jamal murmured, pressing the final band across Darius's joints. Darius inclined his head once, focus locked on Ethan's dramatic show. The contender was pandering to the masses, siphoning vile vigor from those who confused derision with spectacle. Ethan clutched the necklace and feigned straining against it, his expression contorted in an overblown scowl that elicited howls from his backers. From his spot, Darius spotted the senior attendees in the prime seats, temple wardens and local sages who'd aided his academy's funding. Their countenances were etched like granite, having endured such exhibitions far too often. Yet they were present, bearing testimony. That counted. A filming team orbited Ethan as he neared the octagon entrance. The mics snagged his ongoing banter. "Gonna dispatch this lad back to scavenging. You catch my drift?" He blinked at the camera, tone oozing phony Midwestern allure. "Ain't that correct, Titan? Time to cast off those fantasies, lad." Darius inhaled deeply and evenly. He located Keisha's visage amid the throng, his youthful apprentice perched rigid next to Aunt Clara. The girl's gaze brimmed with strain, but upon meeting Darius's, she elevated her jaw with intense honor. That was key, demonstrating to the youth how to endure. The arbiter summoned both combatants to the midpoint for concluding directives. Ethan sauntered ahead, declining to lock eyes with the authority. Rather, he inclined near Darius and muttered phrases the adjacent cameras seized plainly. "Post this, you can scrub my garage if you pled sweetly." Darius's rhythm stayed constant. He'd grasped ages ago that malice was mere clamor, and clamor couldn't wound unless invited. He centered on his respiration, on the solid flooring under his soles, on the decades of drills that delivered him here. The arbiter concluded his guidance and requested a glove tap, a customary gesture of esteem. Ethan chortled and pranced rearward, catering to his side. "Nah, I avoid contacting what I can't cleanse." Further guffaws from his allies while segments of the audience commenced jeering. Darius retreated to his side where Jamal awaited with the bite guard. The junior's digits quivered faintly as he proffered it. "Maintain concentration," Jamal breathed. "Identical to the academy, identical to practice." Darius assented, inserting the guard with habitual simplicity. Opposite the octagon, Ethan was staging a performance for his team. Phantom sparring with amplified gestures and hailing his admirers. The disparity between the warriors couldn't be more pronounced. One individual striving to convert brutality into vaudeville, the other approaching it with the solemnity it merited. The chime pealed crisp and pure across the venue. Ethan promptly initiated hopping on his digits, arms lowered, jaw elevated. A warrior so persuaded of his supremacy that he'd forsaken fundamental guarding. He orbited the octagon's perimeter, gesturing at Darius and lipping terms that required no audition to comprehend. 20,000 voices fused into a barrier of noise. Clash, clash, clash. Darius adopted his posture, shoulders easing into ideal alignment, fists lifted to shield his jaw. Every fiber was lax yet primed. Every inhalation calibrated and complete. He advanced a solitary stride. Ethan's retort was to protrude his tongue and smack his own leg like summoning a hound. The insolence was deliberate, crafted to incite a sentimental retort. But Darius had devoted years instructing novice warriors that sentiment was the foe of method. The throng's incantation amplified, ravenous. Ethan advanced, still pandering to the lenses, still deeming this mere amusement. He failed to perceive what Darius's pupils would have discerned instantly. The minor weight transfer, the nearly undetectable slant of the rear foot, the manner Darius's gaze fixated not on Ethan's countenance, but on his torso's core, where all motion originated. The initial clash detonated with the abrupt wrath of seasonal thunder. Ethan surged ahead all bravado and display while Darius lingered anchored in the tempest's core, prepared to counter Theatrix with expertise. The initial clash arrived like a thunderburst. Ethan plunged ahead with a reckless overhead right, his structure lax from arrogance. The strike whistled beyond Darius's ear, encountering naught but void. In that instant, Ethan's gaze expanded. The inaugural spark of uncertainty traversing his visage as he comprehended his blunder. Darius advanced with the seamless elegance of extensive rehearsal. He entered Ethan's reach, embracing the grapple as Ethan sought to regain equilibrium. Their frames collided and Darius's knee thrust upward keen and exact into Ethan's side. The collision elicited a wheeze from Ethan's gullet, more astonishment than agony. They parted, Ethan retreating while attempting to dismiss the blow. Fluke hit, he jeered, but his timbre had forfeited some arrogance. He orbited leftward, probing with his thrust, no longer so eager to charge blindly. The audience's vibe altered, the savage yells morphing to whispers of admiration as they acknowledged the skill chasm between the combatants. Darius flowed like liquid, each advance intentional, severing Ethan's evasion paths without appearing to pursue. Ethan hurled a curving left hook, signaling the strike with a minor shoulder sag that Darius had undoubtedly observed in bout recordings. Darius evaded it gracefully, permitting the strike to skim his arm before rotating to deliver a precise retort to Ethan's midsection. The blow was accurate, intended to injure without inflicting grave harm. "That all you possess, lad?" Ethan bellowed, but his expression betrayed him. A fine layer of perspiration had emerged on his brow, and his respiration was already strained. The perpetual motion, the missed strikes, and Darius's torso assault were exacting their due. Amid the spectators, Keisha inclined ahead in her chair, identifying the arrangement. She'd witnessed Darius rehearse this sequence innumerable times in the academy, the way his mentor would lure aggressive warriors into excess, employing their own impetus against them. Darius dipped his stance marginally, a delicate adjustment implying he might seek a floor takedown. Ethan seized the lure, dropping his fists to guard against the illusory attempt. That's when Darius assaulted. The left straight was a marvel of dreadful splendor. It traversed the briefest feasible span between points, propelled from Darius's flawless placement. The strike bore the mass of years of drills, of myriad hours striking mitts and sacks, of practice bouts where every nuance was honed to blade keenness. The collision was audible even above the audience din, a keen snap like a limb fracturing in chill. Ethan's head jerked rearward, his frame rigid for a pulse before collapsing to the mat. He tumbled level, limbs splayed, legs entwined beneath him. Arbiter Todd Barrett leapt between them forthwith, signaling the bout's end. The whole interchange, from initial strike to conclusion, had consumed merely 10 seconds. The venue descended into utter quiet. 20,000 individuals withheld their breath as health personnel hastened toward the downed warrior. The hush was so absolute you could discern the scrape of their footwear on mat, the metallic clatter of their gear. In the prime row, Aunt Clara's lips shifted in mute supplication, her weathered palms clasped firm. Encircling her, the sages who'd observed decades of insolence sat impeccably motionless, their expressions inscrutable veils. Darius refrained from reveling. Instead, he knelt beside his vanquished rival, verifying Ethan's respiration with the meticulous care of one who grasped the grave accountability accompanying such might. His countenance displayed no exultation, no justification, solely vocational worry. The health squad operated proficiently, their subdued voices resonating in the silent venue as they evaluated Ethan's state. Darius rose and withdrew, granting them room to labor. He proceeded to his side with the identical calibrated composure he'd exhibited throughout the contest. As he traversed the lens nearest his side, his timbre was scarcely a murmur, but the mic seized it distinctly. "That's what honor resonates like." Jamal advanced to unbind Darius's fists, his own digits quivering faintly with residual excitement. In the octagon, Ethan was commencing to rouse, replying to the healer's inquiries. The silence began to fracture, supplanted by dispersed ovation that swelled progressively louder. Darius stood impeccably still as Jamal toiled, his respiration already normalized. He observed the health squad assist Ethan to a seated posture, noting the junior warrior's lucid gaze and synchronized motions, indicators that the defeat, while conclusive, had inflicted no enduring harm. The ceiling displays replayed the conclusion in delayed pace. The lure, Ethan's protective response, and the impeccable mechanics of the terminating strike. Even at reduced velocity, the performance was impeccable. No squandered motion, no frantic swings, merely pristine method administered with medical accuracy. In the prime row, Keisha examined the replay intently, her youthful countenance grave with focus. She'd observed that identical sequence in drills, had executed it myriad times on the weighty sack under Darius's tolerant guidance. But witnessing it performed at this caliber, on this platform against one who had endeavored to convert their discipline into a stage for animosity, that was a teaching transcending method. The venue's vibe shifted as Darius proceeded backstage, the audience's response dividing like oil and water. Some spectators rose, applauding with authentic reverence, while others jeered and flung slurs. Security personnel bordered him, their attendance more ceremonial than essential given his poised bearing. The cement hallway felt chillier than the octagon, the audience's sounds muffling as weighty portals swung closed. Behind them, Darius's footsteps reverberated off the barriers, his breathing still steady and regulated. Sweat chilled on his skin as he directed toward the changing area. Aunt Clara's kin Jamal trailing slightly with their equipment sack. Around a bend, voices drifted from a maintenance niche. Harsh murmurs that mismatched the vocational ambiance of the site. Darius slackened his stride, not intending to overhear, but ensnared by the urgency in the inflections. Rectify this immediately, Victor Lang's voice hissed, barely restrained fury making it tremble. Do you comprehend what you just cost our patrons? Arbiter Todd Barrett's reply was softer, anxious. What do you anticipate me to do? It was legitimate. Discover something, anything. That's what we compensate you for, isn't it? Or should I remind specific individuals about your debt at the Silver Palace? Darius persisted past without pivoting his head, but he snagged their reflection in a wall-fixed screen. Lang's groomed palm gripping Barrett's cuff, the arbiter's visage pallid under the glowing lights. Jamal contacted Darius's arm, a mute query in his gaze, but Darius merely shook his head subtly. They'd been in the combat realm long enough to know some skirmishes weren't worth selecting. The changing area portal had scarcely sealed behind them when a bored functionary burst in, notepad in grasp and appearing uneasy. Mr. Williams, there's been an examination of the conclusion. Darius was unbinding his fists, the gauze peeling off in extended strips. Examination. It was a legitimate defeat. The arbiter has pinpointed an unlawful blow to the rear of the skull. The outcome is being reversed to a no decision. The gauze ceased unraveling. Darius's fists went immobile. That's unfeasible. He rotated into it. The board's verdict is conclusive. The functionary wouldn't meet his gaze. Mr. Hayes is being conveyed to the clinic for monitoring. Standard procedure for any cranial trauma. The formal result will indicate. Let me view the replay. Darius's timbre was subdued, but bore a weight that made the functionary retreat. I'm not authorized to the replay. Darius stood his complete stature, making the compact space feel even tinier. Now the functionary fumbled with a device, pulling up the video stream as it displayed on the screen affixed in the corner. The portal opened anew. A lady in her late 50s entered, media credential dangling around her neck, her silver hair trimmed in a practical fashion. Vanessa Reed had been reporting on bouts since before Darius commenced drills, and her demeanor indicated she detected a narrative. Mind if I observe, too? She inquired, though she was already situating herself for a clear perspective. Her device was capturing, seizing Darius's reaction as the footage unfolded. The sequence unrolled in high clarity. The lure, Ethan's head rotating as he attempted to evade the strike, the impact that pursued the precise trajectory they rehearsed thousands of times in the academy. The blow landed pristine on the mandible, nowhere near the rear of the skull. Through the open portal, they could hear the declaration being made to the throng. A blend of bewilderment and ire filtered down the passageway. On a gurney being rolled past, Ethan Hayes caught Darius's eye and smirked. a swift flash of contentment before he remembered to grimace for the lenses. "This is what I'm perceiving," Vanessa said distinctly, her device still capturing. A skilled warrior throws a legitimate strike. His rival rotates into it. A common protective error. "Would you say that's precise, Darius?" Darius stood before the screen, watching the instant replay repeatedly. His countenance remained poised, but something in his gaze had solidified. He turned his head, he said softly, each term. "Exact, engaged. That's combat fundamentals. You don't turn away from a strike. Every novice knows that." The footage froze on the critical frame, Ethan's head initiating its turn. Darius's mid following a textbook curve. The moment just prior to impact captured in crystal clarity, it was the split second that would launch 1,000 debates. Freeze framed for posterity. Vanessa's fingers moved across her device's screen. Already composing, 2 decades of covering combat sports had taught her to recognize the difference between normal controversy and something darker. The tension in the room, the official's refusal to make eye contact, the timing of the review, it all added up to a story that went beyond a disputed call. Jamal started packing their gear, his movements sharp with suppressed anger. The official backed toward the door, muttering about paperwork and protocols. But Darius just stood there, studying the frozen image like he was memorizing every pixel, every detail of the moment when victory became something else entirely. Vanessa's voice cut through the heavy silence. "Mind if I quote you on that about turning the head?" Darius nodded once, his eyes still on the screen. The image remained unchanged, a perfect technical punch, a deliberate defensive error, and the beginning of a controversy that would spread far beyond the arena's walls. Dawn crept over Darius's academy, a humble brick structure with faded lettering that read Williams Neighborhood Combat. The morning light filtered through dusty windows, catching motes that danced in the quiet air. Darius had been there since 5 a.m., his normal routine unchanged despite the chaos brewing outside. His phone buzzed again, the 20th notification in as many minutes. Each vibration felt like another small tremor threatening to shake his foundation. Jamal, who'd stayed overnight to help clean up, handed him a cup of black coffee. "You need to see this," Jamal said, holding up his own phone. The video playing on social media looked familiar, but wrong, like seeing your reflection in a warped mirror. Someone had taken footage of the knockout and doctored it, slowing certain frames while speeding up others. The editing made Darius's clean counterpunch appear to slide to the back of Ethan's head. A red circle appeared, highlighting the manipulated point of impact. 2 million views already, Jamal muttered, scrolling through the comments. "They're calling it a sucker punch." Darius sat down his coffee, untouched. Truth doesn't need editing. The academy's front door chimed as Keisha pushed it open, her school backpack slung over one shoulder. The teenager's face was tight with anger. "They're lying about you all over the internet. Take your gear to the locker room," Darius said calmly. "We'll work the heavy bag in 10. But before Keisha could move, more phones started ringing. Aunt Clara arrived just as Darius answered a call from their bank. Her temple footwear clicked against the concrete floor as she watched his expression darken. "What do you mean frozen?" Darius's voice remained level, but his free hand clenched. "Those are operating funds." "No, I understand liability investigation," but he fell silent, listening. Aunt Clara didn't need to hear the other side of the conversation. She'd been running the academy's books long enough to know what financial strangulation looked like. While Darius talked, she pulled out her ledger and calculator, lips moving silently as she tallied up their obligations. Through the front windows, they could see a police cruiser pulling up. 2 officers stepped out, followed by a man in an expensive suit clutching a leather briefcase. "Here we go," Jamal muttered. The officers entered first, their expressions professionally neutral. "Mr. Williams, we have a summons to serve." The suited man, clearly a lawyer, stepped forward with papers. "My client, Ethan Hayes, is pressing charges for assault beyond the scope of sanctioned competition, given the severity of his injuries." "What injuries?" Keisha burst out. He was smirking when they carried him out. "Keisha." Darius's tone was quiet but firm. The teenager fell silent, though her fists remained clenched. The lawyer continued as if uninterrupted. "We've also filed for an emergency injunction to freeze assets pending criminal and civil proceedings." Darius took the papers without comment, scanning them quickly before passing them to Aunt Clara. Her eyes narrowed as she read, years of temple treasurer experience letting her cut through the legal language. Victor Lang's letterhead, she noted, not even trying to hide it. More phones buzzed. Jamal pulled up a news site where Lang's PR team had been busy. Headlines screamed across the screen. Street brawler assaults emerging talent and illegal move ends title aspirations. The morning light seemed dimmer now, as if the lies were physically darkening the air. Aunt Clara's calculator clicked steadily. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, equipment payments. Each button press felt like another nail. 3 weeks, she finally said, that's how long we can last with frozen accounts if we're careful. The police and lawyer left, their job done. Keisha stood by the speed bag, her young face struggling to process the injustice. But everyone saw what happened. The whole arena saw. Sometimes seeing isn't enough, Darius said, moving to stand beside his student. People see what they're told to see. Our job is to show them what's true. The day crawled by. Regular members trickled in, offering support, but also asking worried questions about whether their memberships would be affected. Darius trained them all as usual, his voice steady as he called out combinations. But with each passing hour, the weight of uncertainty grew heavier. As evening approached, the lights flickered once, twice, then died. The academy plunged into semi-darkness, lit only by what little sunset made it through the windows. The power company hadn't waited for the grace period to end. In the deepening shadows, Darius moved to the center of the main floor. His hands wrapped out of habit. He began to shadow box. The whisper of his feet on the floor and the soft snap of punches cutting air were the only sounds. Keisha sat on the ring steps, watching her mentor move through the gloom. Aunt Clara stood in the office doorway, her ledger clutched to her chest like armor. Through the window, they could see Vanessa Reed in her car, speaking into a microphone for her podcast. Her voice carried faintly through the walls. When power cuts out, that's when you see who's still standing. Darius's shadow danced across the darkened walls, each movement precise and controlled. A man shadowboxing against forces far larger than himself. The academy might be dark, but his form remained perfect, a testament to everything he'd built, everything they were trying to take away. The sun hadn't fully risen when Darius backed his pickup truck to the academy's side door. The metal loading ramp clanked against the curb as he lowered it. Inside the dark building, he could barely make out the shapes of equipment they'd need. "Pass me that speed bag mount," he called to Jamal, who had shown up early to help. They worked steadily, moving gear into the growing dawn light. Heavy bags, jump ropes, timer bells, and worn boxing gloves. The parking lot's cracked asphalt became their new training floor. Darius swept it clean, marking spaces with chalk where the equipment would go. The routine helped quiet his mind, pushing back thoughts of frozen accounts. And legal papers. "Need a place to rest these old bones while I watch." Darius turned to find Mrs. Jenkins from the temple carrying a folding chair and a thermos. Behind her, other neighborhood elders appeared like a quiet parade. Mr. Harris, who'd been coming to watch training sessions for years, brought 3 chairs stacked in his arms. Miss Evelyn rolled up in her motorized scooter, a cardboard tray of coffee cups balanced carefully on her lap. "Y'all didn't have to come," Darius said, but his voice caught slightly. "Child, please." Mrs. Jenkins set up her chair with practiced efficiency. "We've been watching young folks train here since before you were born. No locked door going to change that." They arranged their chairs in a semicircle, creating an outdoor audience space. The morning air filled with the smell of coffee and the soft murmur of their conversations. Some brought Bibles, planning to read between watching the training. Keisha arrived next, her school backpack stuffed with hand wraps and her old gloves. Her cast from the previous night's assault stood out starkly white against her dark skin. Without being asked, she started preparing equipment for the younger kids who would come later. "Can't punch with this," she said, holding up her cast. "But I can still teach what you taught me." More community members drifted in. Parents dropped off kids on their way to work, relieved to find the academy still operating, even if outdoors. A few brought donuts or fruit, turning the morning into something between a training session and a temple social. Vanessa Reed's hybrid car pulled up quietly. She got out with her recording equipment, moving through the growing crowd with practiced ease. Her microphone caught snippets of conversation, the sound of gloves hitting pads, the laughter of kids skipping rope. They thought darkness would stop this light, Mrs. Jenkins told Vanessa's microphone, gesturing at the gathering. But we've been having temple in fields before we had buildings. Same principle. Darius was demonstrating footwork to a group of teenagers when a black SUV parked across the street. Elena Vargas, chair of the state athletic board, stepped out. She waited until Darius finished his lesson before approaching. "This is off the record," she said quietly, nodding to Vanessa, who lowered her microphone. "But something's wrong in my department. The override on your victory came from pressure I can't trace yet. Keep teaching, keep documenting, I'll keep looking." She left as discreetly as she'd arrived, but her visit lifted spirits further. Darius returned to teaching, showing a young girl how to pivot properly. "Combat isn't about hitting," he explained, demonstrating the movement. "It's about balance, about staying steady when forces try to knock you down." The morning grew warmer. Someone brought a portable radio and gospel music mixed with the rhythm of jump ropes slapping pavement. Keisha moved between groups of kids, adjusting stances and offering encouragement. Her cast became a badge of resilience rather than injury. "Remember," she told a nervous boy, "Mr. Darius says, fear is just energy waiting to be used." Right. Vanessa captured it all. The determined faces, the supportive community, the dignity in defiance. She interviewed elderly residents who remembered when the academy first opened. Parents whose kids found direction in its programs. Teenagers who spoke about Darius's impact on their lives. "They can cut the lights," said Miss Evelyn into Vanessa's microphone. "But they can't cut the light in these children's eyes when they master a new skill." As noon approached, more chairs appeared. Someone strung up a tarp for shade. The parking lot had transformed into an outdoor classroom, a community center, a statement of persistence. Darius watched it all between lessons. His quiet pride showing in subtle ways, a nod to the elders, a pat on a student's shoulder, a small smile at particularly good combinations. Every so often his eyes moved to the dark academy building, but the life flourishing outside seemed to answer any doubts. In her car, Vanessa pieced together her footage. Her fingers moved quickly over her laptop keyboard as she crafted the story. The title came naturally. Grace Under Hate. Community rises as academy goes dark. She included clips of children learning, elders teaching life lessons between rounds, and Darius's steady presence through it all. The final shot showed the whole scene from above. A vibrant circle of activity in a parking lot. Proof that community couldn't be locked out or shut down. Within hours of posting, her notification bar began filling with messages. Small donations appeared in the defense fund she'd mentioned. $5, $20, whatever people could spare. Each contribution came with messages of support. "Keep teaching. Stay strong. We see the truth." The afternoon sun beat down on the pavement as another group of kids arrived for their lesson. Darius adjusted the tarp for better shade, then returned to the chalk circle he'd drawn for footwork drills. The sound of boxing timers and gospel music drifted out over the neighborhood. A rhythm of resistance, a beat of hope. 2 days after the parking lot revival, Darius pushed a shopping cart through the supermarket's fluorescent-lit aisles. The wheels squeaked as he checked his list. Granola bars, juice boxes, fresh fruit. The kids needed fuel for training, and the outdoor sessions burned more energy than usual. "Let's split up," he told Keisha, who'd come to help carry bags. "You grab the apples and bananas. I'll get the protein bars." The store was quiet for a Wednesday afternoon. Darius's footsteps echoed on the polished floor as he read nutrition labels, calculating servings per dollar. A mother with 2 small children smiled as she passed. She'd brought them to watch training yesterday. The peace shattered when Ethan Hayes' voice boomed through the aisle. "Well, look who it is. The cheap shot king himself." Darius turned slowly. Ethan stood at the end of the aisle, phone held high, live streaming. A white bandage wrapped his neck dramatically, though medical reports had shown no serious injury. 2 friends flanked him, also filming. "Nothing to say," Ethan advanced, performing for his online audience. "You're real tough when you're hitting people from behind." Darius kept his voice level. "There's security footage of the fight. The strike was clean. Clean. Ethan's laugh was sharp, theatrical. That why they took your win away? That why you're teaching kids in a parking lot now? Other shoppers stopped to watch. Phones appeared, recording the confrontation. Darius noticed an elderly couple backing away, probably remembering similar scenes from darker decades. The footage shows exactly what happened, Darius said. You turned your head after the punch was thrown. That's why. Shows you're scared to face me straight up. Ethan stepped closer, playing to his growing online audience. Had to sneak one in, right? That's what you teach those kids. Keisha appeared at the end of the aisle, arms full of fruit. Her eyes widened at the scene. Put it down, kid, Ethan called out. Your teacher here needs to explain himself. Leave her out of this, Darius said quietly. But Ethan was already moving toward Keisha, camera aimed at the teenager's face. Tell us, kid, he teach you all his dirty tricks. Mister. Darius teaches us respect, Keisha said, standing her ground. And technique, the kind that put you to sleep fair and square. Ethan's face darkened. He shoved Keisha hard, sending apples scattering across the floor. The girl stumbled but caught herself against a display. Darius's hands tightened but he kept them at his sides. The watching phones recorded his stillness, his measured breath. Let me explain the technique, he said clearly, drawing Ethan's attention back. You dropped your right hand after throwing wild. Basic counter-striking. We drill it every day. Your head movement was poor, leaving the jaw exposed. The left cross landed clean before you turned away. He demonstrated the sequence in slow motion without throwing actual punches. His movements were precise, educational. See, there's no mystery, no cheap shots, just fundamentals you forgot while playing to the crowd. Ethan's face reddened. This wasn't giving him the clip he wanted. You trying to give me lessons in a grocery store? I'm trying to show you respect, Darius replied. By explaining exactly what happened, the same respect I show my students, my community, and every opponent. Win or lose, a small crowd had gathered. Their phones captured Ethan's increasing agitation against Darius's steady calm. Someone was already uploading. You think you're better than me? Ethan stepped into Darius's space. Some kind of holy man. I bet you're just scared to throw down right here. I'm a teacher, Darius said. Right now, I'm teaching that strength isn't about who can shove the hardest. It's about who can stand the straightest. He turned to Keisha, who was picking up scattered fruit. You okay? The girl nodded, her earlier fear replaced by pride in her mentor's composure. Then let's finish shopping. These kids need their snacks. Darius calmly returned to his cart, placed his protein bars inside, and moved toward the checkout. The gathered crowd parted to let him through. Phones still recording. Ethan called after him. This ain't over. You hear me? It was over in 10 seconds, an old woman in the crowd muttered, drawing nervous laughter. Within an hour, multiple angles of the confrontation hit social media. Vanessa Reed's blog picked up the story immediately. Her measured voice played over the footage. Dignity isn't silence, it's choosing where to swing. Today, in a Chicago grocery store, Darius Williams demonstrated that the hardest hits don't always come from fists. The clips spread rapidly. Darius's patient explanation of the technique, his protection of his student, his refusal to escalate. Comments poured in from professional fighters and coaches breaking down the original knockout footage confirming Darius's technical analysis. But it was the quiet moments that went viral. Darius helping Keisha gather the spilled apples, the gentle way he placed them in the cart, his straight back as he walked away from provocation. Each new share added to a portrait of composure under pressure. By evening, the defense fund saw another surge of small donations. Local businesses offered to sponsor outdoor equipment. A retired judge volunteered legal services. In the parking lot academy, Darius didn't mention the incident. He just taught his evening classes, demonstrated combinations, and reminded his students that true power comes from control. The sun had set, but Vanessa Reed's converted garage office blazed with fluorescent light. 3 monitors cluttered her desk, each displaying different financial records. Coffee cups formed a cemetery of caffeine across the workspace. The police scanner crackled quietly in the corner, a habit she'd kept from her newspaper days. Vanessa squinted at spreadsheets, her reading glasses slipping down her nose. Look at this, she said, tapping her screen. These betting patterns make no sense. Darius leaned over her shoulder, the smell of academy chalk still clinging to his shirt. He'd come straight from the parking lot. Training session. What are we seeing? Money movement. Lots of it. Vanessa pulled up a timeline. See these spikes? Massive bets placed through offshore accounts, all within minutes of your knockout being overturned. Aunt Clara settled into a creaking office chair, her Temple Choir folder still in her lap. In English, please. Some of us handle real books, not computer ones. Vanessa smiled. Someone knew the knockout would be ruled invalid before it happened. They bet accordingly. She pointed to a series of transactions. These accounts dumped money against you, winning right before Arbiter Barrett made his call. How much money? Darius asked. Nearly $500,000. Vanessa typed rapidly, bringing up corporate registries. All through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. But look at this. They all trace back to a holding company called VL Enterprises. VL repeated. Victor Lang. Exactly. Vanessa opened another window. He's not as clever as he thinks. Used the same lawyer who handles his academy licenses to set up the offshore accounts. Elena Vargas, who'd slipped in quietly through the side door, stepped into the light. Her business suit looked out of place among the filing cabinets and old newspaper clippings. This is bigger than we thought. Madam Commissioner. Vanessa nodded. Glad you could make it. Had to be careful. Elena glanced at the covered windows. I was followed twice this week. They're watching board members who voted to review the case. Darius's jaw tightened. They're that worried about one overturned fight. It's not just the fight. Elena pulled out her phone showing emails. Lang's tentacles run deep. He's got judges on payroll, betting syndicates in 3 states. If this unravels, she shook her head. The whole board could collapse. Aunt Clara snorted. Maybe it needs to. You don't understand. Elena paced the small space. We're talking about every major fight in the state for the past 5 years. Championships, title shots, television contracts. If the board's credibility dies, so does legitimate fighting in Illinois. Vanessa was still typing. Found something else. Barrett, your arbiter. His house was in foreclosure last year. Suddenly, the bank gave him a miracle extension. Guess who sits on the bank's board? Lang, Darius said quietly through another shell company. Vanessa pushed back from her desk. But here's the real problem. We can prove the corruption, but publishing it burns everyone. Clean officials, dirty ones, the whole system. Elena nodded grimly. Years of legitimate fights would be questioned. Every decision, every ranking. Careers would end. Academies would close. The sport itself could die in this state. My academy's already dying, Darius said. While we worry about protecting a broken system, Aunt Clara reached for his hand. Truth's got a cost, baby. Always has. The police scanner crackled. Traffic stops, domestic calls. The city's normal rhythm continued outside while they sat with this powder keg of evidence. There might be a way, Elena said slowly. If we could isolate Lang, prove this specific fight was compromised without exposing the broader pattern. Half measures, Vanessa interrupted. I've been doing this 30 years. Corruption doesn't die from small cuts. You have to rip it out completely. Darius stood, his shadow stretching across Vanessa's evidence wall. Photos, documents, betting receipts, all these papers, all these secrets. While kids train in a parking lot because someone decided truth was too expensive. The board does good work, too. Elena protested. We protect fighters, set safety standards. Without us, without you, we're exactly where we are now. Darius's voice stayed level, but carried steel. My license suspended. My academy dark, a corrupt promoter using racism to sell tickets and fix fights. Aunt Clara started humming Amazing Grace, her worry song. The tune filled the small space as they all considered the weight of their next move. Vanessa broke the silence. I can have the story ready in 48 hours. But Elena's right. It burns everything. The board, the rankings, years of fights. There's no small version of this explosion. Elena stood straighter, smoothing her blazer. If we expose this, the whole state board burns. Every fight, every official, every decision becomes suspect. Is that what you want? Darius met her eyes. His voice was quiet but firm. Then let it burn. I'll light it myself if I have to. Morning light streamed through the stained glass windows of Zion Temple, painting rainbow patterns across the wooden pews. Aunt Clara fussed with the projector setup, her Sunday best offsetting the technical equipment. The congregation filtered in slowly, filling the air with whispered greetings and the rustle of program papers. "Sister Williams, you sure about this?" Deacon Thompson helped her adjust the screen angle. "Temple ain't usually for fight videos. Truth is for everywhere," Aunt Clara replied, her fingers moving deliberately over the laptop borrowed from the youth ministry. "Besides, ain't we supposed to be a refuge?" Darius sat in the back pew, uncomfortable in his pressed shirt and tie. Keisha fidgeted beside him, her cast decorated with signatures from the parking lot training sessions. Elena Vargas had slipped in quietly, choosing an inconspicuous spot near the side door. Her presence spoke volumes about the morning's importance. Pastor Hayes approached the pulpit as the organ's final notes faded. "Brothers and sisters, before our regular service, we have a matter of justice to address." He nodded to Aunt Clara. "Sister Williams." Aunt Clara stood, her voice carrying that quiet authority. "Most of you know my nephew Darius. Most of you know what they did to him. But Brother Jamal here," she gestured to a thin man in the third row. "He caught something they didn't want seen." Jamal stood holding up his phone. "I was ringside filming for my daughter. She couldn't make the fight. Never stopped recording, not even during the confusion." After the temple lights dimmed, the projector hummed to life, throwing a clear image onto the screen. The footage started shaky but steadied as it captured the fight's crucial moment. There was no commentary, no editing, just raw video from an angle the official cameras hadn't shown. The congregation watched in complete silence as the sequence unfolded. Ethan's wild rush, Darius's defensive stance, the counter-punch landing clean on the jaw, definitively legal, definitively not to the back of the head. Ethan's falling, the 10 seconds of silence that followed. Frame by frame, Aunt Clara announced, working the controls. The footage played again in slow motion. No illegal strike, no back of the head, just clean technique and the truth. Elena Vargas stood up, her legal pad already in hand. "Mr. Jamal, would you be willing to testify to the authenticity of this footage at a board hearing? Already notarized it this morning before service." Jamal replied, "My daughter's a lawyer, too." Within hours, the board convened an emergency session. The hearing room buzzed with tension as Darius's legal team presented the footage. Victor Lang sat in the back, his usual smile replaced by a tight-lipped glare. He'd cornered 2 board members in the hallway earlier, his whispered threats carrying just far enough to be heard. "The video evidence is conclusive," Elena announced from the chairman's seat. "The strike was legal. The subsequent ruling of no contest is hereby overturned." She fixed Lang with a steel gaze. "Furthermore, this board will launch a full investigation into the circumstances surrounding the original decision." Lang stood up, straightening his expensive jacket. "This is a farce. That footage could be doctored. We have protocols." "Sit down, Mr. Lang." Elena cut him off. "Unless you'd like to explain the betting patterns we've uncovered as well." The color drained from Lang's face. He sat. Elena continued, "The board rules unanimously. Darius Williams's victory stands. His license is reinstated immediately. All associated charges are dismissed." She turned to the court recorder. "Please note that we are also recommending a criminal investigation into potential fight fixing and fraud." Back at the academy that afternoon, the parking lot transformed into an impromptu celebration. Folding chairs gave way to folding tables laden with food. Someone had strung Christmas lights between the poles of the outdoor boxing ring. The smell of barbecue mixed with summer air as the community gathered. Keisha helped younger kids practice combinations, her cast not stopping her from teaching footwork. Aunt Clara directed the food distribution with the same precision she used for choir arrangements. Temple members mingled with academy regulars, sharing plates and stories. "Look at this," Vanessa said, showing Darius her latest blog post on her tablet. "Views are climbing. People are sharing the unedited footage. The truth's got legs now." Darius watched his community celebrate. An old-timer was teaching kids to double dutch between the heavy bags. 2 deacons had set up a chess table near the speed bag station. Music drifted from someone's portable speaker. Gospel mixing with hip-hop in a uniquely Chicago harmony. "Bank called," Aunt Clara announced, joining them with a plate of ribs. "Funds are unfrozen. Bills can get paid tomorrow." Elena appeared with a cold drink, her suit jacket finally off in the Illinois heat. Board's already received 3 other reports of suspicious rulings. Seems your case broke the dam. Sometimes that's all it takes, Vanessa said, typing on her phone. One clear picture, one unedited truth. She showed them her latest post. Sometimes redemption plays in high definition. The celebration continued as the sun began to set, the Christmas lights twinkling brighter against the darkening sky. Children practiced their shadow boxing, their movements casting long, hopeful shapes across the parking lot. The smell of barbecue lingered in the warm air, mixing with laughter and fragments of hymns. Neighborhood elders told stories of past struggles and victories, their voices carrying wisdom across generations. The academy's lights blazed bright again, the interior visible through the open doors where new students were already signing up for tomorrow's classes. As evening settled in, the parking lot celebration took on a magical quality. The Christmas lights twinkled against the darkening sky, creating halos around the makeshift dance floor where Aunt Clara was teaching younger kids the electric slide. Her laughter carried across the lot, mixing with the music from portable speakers. Keisha held court near the outdoor ring, her cast now covered in fresh signatures from the party. She demonstrated footwork to a group of wide-eyed kids, moving smoothly despite her injury. "See, it's like a beat," she explained, tapping out a rhythm with her feet. 1, 2, slide, then boom, you're out of trouble. "But what if they're bigger?" a small boy asked, barely tall enough to reach the lowest rope. "Then you're smarter," Keisha replied, demonstrating a dodge. "That's what Coach Darius always says. Smart beats strong every time." The smell of barbecue smoke drifted through the warm air as temple ladies manned the grills, arguing good-naturedly about secret sauce recipes. Deacon Thompson had set up chess boards on card tables, teaching strategy to teenagers between bites of potato salad. The whole scene felt like a block party mixed with a family reunion. Darius stood at the edge of it all, taking in the sight of his community whole and healing. Elena Vargas had loosened her tie and rolled up her sleeves, deep in conversation with Vanessa about board reform. Temple elders shared plates of cobbler with academy regulars, swapping stories about Chicago's changing neighborhoods. His phone buzzed in his pocket. The number wasn't local. "This is Darius Williams," he answered, stepping away from the music. "Mr. Williams, Mike Gonzalez from National Combat Productions." The voice was crisp, professional. "Got a minute to talk business?" Darius moved further from the crowd, finding a quiet spot near the academy's side door. "I'm listening. That temple footage is everywhere. Clean shot, clean win. The public's demanding a proper rematch." Gonzalez paused. "We want to make it right. Prime time slot, neutral venue, full promotional push." "I'm not interested in circus shows," Darius replied. "No circus. This is about legacy." Papers rustled on Gonzalez's end. "We're offering a 7-figure purse. Winner's share goes to fund youth centers across Illinois. Full transparency on officiating. Your choice of corners." Darius watched Keisha demonstrating jabs to the kids, her cast not slowing her enthusiasm. He thought about all the other Keishas in other neighborhoods looking for somewhere safe to learn and grow. "The board?" Darius asked. Elena Vargas helped draft the contract. Every rule spelled out, every official vetted. Ethan's already agreed to the terms. Through the academy's open door, Darius could see the wall of photos. Fighters who'd trained here, kids who'd found their way. His father's old boxing gloves hung in a place of honor. Still protecting dreams after all these years. "Send me the paperwork," Darius said. "My lawyer reviews everything first. You'll have it within the hour." Gonzalez sounded pleased. "This is going to be huge, Mr. Williams. A real chance to change things." Darius ended the call and rejoined the celebration. Aunt Clara had graduated from electric slide to soul train. A line of dancers snaking through the parking lot. The Christmas lights cast moving shadows as people laughed and stepped in time. "Good news?" Vanessa asked, notebook already in hand. "Could be." Darius accepted a plate of food from a temple lady who wouldn't take no for an answer. National Promotion wants to do it right this time. Before Vanessa could press for details, phones started buzzing throughout the crowd. Ethan had posted a video, his face still showing traces of the first fight. "Round 2, Titan," he sneered into the camera. "This time, No cheap shots, just pain. Let's see how you handle real pressure under those bright lights. The video ended with Ethan shadow boxing, each punch thrown with theatrical menace. Comments were already flooding in, split between those calling for blood and those calling for justice. Keisha limped over, her phone out. You going to shut him up again, coach? Better. Darius smiled. We're going to teach him. The party continued around them, but with a new energy. Anticipation mixing with determination. Aunt Clara led another line dance. This one moving like a victory march. Elena and Vanessa huddled with local activists already planning coverage angles. The chess players discussed strategy with new intensity. Inside the academy, Darius found a quiet moment. He took down his father's old fight photo. Young man in boxing stance, fists raised against a world that didn't want him to win. The picture had hung there so long the wall behind it was lighter than the rest. Darius pulled a fresh thumbtack from Aunt Clara's office supply drawer. He moved the photo higher, more prominent now, where everyone coming through the door would see it. His father's eyes seemed to watch the room, guarding all the dreams stored in this space. This time we finish it right, Darius said to the photo, touching the frame once before heading back to the celebration. The party stretched into the night, stars competing with Christmas lights. Keisha taught combinations to a new group of kids, their shadows sharp against the parking lot pavement. Aunt Clara's voice rose above the music, leading a chorus of amens and laughter. The hotel conference room felt sterile and cold, all beige walls and fluorescent lighting. Darius sat straight-backed in an uncomfortable chair, studying the contract spread across the polished table. His lawyer, Mrs. Lee, flipped through the pages with careful fingers, while Victor Lang lounged across the table, playing with his gold watch. Everything standard, Lang said, his smile too wide. Just need your signature and we can start promoting the biggest rematch Chicago's ever seen. Aunt Clara stood behind Darius's chair like a sentinel, her temple hat casting a shadow over the paperwork. She'd insisted on coming, saying she didn't trust Lang's smile any further than she could throw him. Mrs. Lee's finger stopped on page 17. Her face tightened. Mr. Williams, there's something here you need to see. Darius leaned forward as she pointed to a dense paragraph buried in the contract's middle. The language was technical, but its meaning was clear. The fight would use Lang's choice of arbiter and venue. If Darius refused these terms or withdrew from the match, he'd forfeit his academy as collateral. You can't be serious, Darius said, looking up at Lang. Just ensuring commitment from both parties. Lang spread his hands. Ethan's already signed. He's very eager to prove the first fight was irregular. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Darius could feel his heartbeat in his temples, slow and steady like a countdown. This is predatory, Mrs. Lee said. The board won't. The board has already approved the terms. Lang's smile didn't waver. Elena Vargas herself signed off this morning. Something about political realities. Aunt Clara's hand squeezed Darius's shoulder. She could feel her trembling with anger, but her voice stayed level. The Lord sees everything you do, Mr. Lang. Every single thing. Then he'll see a fair fight. Lang stood, straightening his tie. You have 24 hours to decide, Mr. Williams. Sign and get your shot at redemption or forfeit and lose everything you've built. Simple business. Darius remained seated as Lang strutted out. The contract seemed to pulse on the table. Its words like poison on the page. We're not signing this, Mrs. Lee said. There has to be another way. There's always another way, Aunt Clara agreed. The Lord doesn't close doors without opening windows. Darius gathered the papers slowly, his mind already calculating angles and options, the academy's mortgage, the kids' programs, the community that depended on that space, all of it hanging by a thread. They rode the elevator down in silence. The hotel lobby was quiet, just a few business travelers wheeling suitcases across marble floors. Outside, the evening air had turned cool, carrying the first hint of fall. I'll start research tonight, Mrs. Lee said, tucking the contract into her briefcase. There might be precedent for challenging these terms. Do it, Darius nodded, but quietly. We don't want. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered, hearing panicked breathing. Coach, it was Jamal, one of his teenage fighters. You got to come quick. It's Keisha. They jumped her at the bus stop. Darius's world narrowed to a tunnel. Where? Lincoln Park. She's hurt bad, coach. They broke something. Darius was running before Jamal finished speaking. Aunt Clara called after him, but her words were lost in the rush of blood in his ears. The bus stop was 6 blocks away. He covered it in minutes, his dress shoes slapping against concrete. The scene hit him like a body shot. Keisha sat on the curb, cradling her right arm. Blood dripped from her nose onto her favorite Bulls jersey. Jamal stood guard nearby, holding Keisha's scattered backpack and phone. 2 guys, Keisha said through gritted teeth. Masks. They came from behind the shelter. Did you see nothing but one of them? Keisha winced as Darius gently examined her wrist. He said, Rattler sends love. Before they ran, a police cruiser arrived, lights flashing. Then an ambulance. Aunt Clara appeared somehow, taking charge of the scene with Temple Lady authority. She handled the cops while Darius rode with Keisha to Chicago General. The emergency room was packed, but Keisha's broken wrist got them in quickly. X-rays confirmed what they already knew. A clean break that would need 6 weeks in a cast. The doctor mentioned lucky several times. It could have been worse. While they waited for the cast to set, Keisha's mother arrived. She hugged her daughter, then turned on Darius with fury in her eyes. This fighting life, she said, it's nothing but trouble. Nothing but pain. Mom, it wasn't Coach's fault, Keisha protested. Those guys were waiting. They knew my route. Exactly. She paced the small exam room. They knew because you're part of this now. This whole mess with that fighter and his people. Darius stood by the window, watching ambulances come and go in the darkness. Each flash of their lights illuminated his reflection. The careful calm he always maintained now cracking at the edges. Keisha caught his eye in the glass. I'm not quitting, Coach. This just proves they're scared. The nurse returned with casting materials in Keisha's chosen color. Academy blue. As she worked, Darius pulled a chair close to the bed. He took Keisha's good hand, feeling the teenager's fingers grip tight. They think it'll break before bell time, Darius said quietly. They're wrong. The morning sun crept through the academy's windows, casting long shadows across the empty mats. Darius stood at his office desk, staring at the contract that seemed to mock him with each passing second. The sound of the front door opening made him look up. Keisha walked in, her right arm in a blue sling that matched the academy's colors. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept much. Neither had Darius. Shouldn't you be resting? Darius asked, his voice gentle. Can't sleep anyway. Keisha shrugged her good shoulder. Mom's been crying all night. Keeps saying I should quit. Darius pulled out a chair for her. The metal scraped against the floor, echoing in the quiet academy. Maybe she's right. Don't you start, too. Keisha's face hardened. This is exactly what they want. Before Darius could respond, Aunt Clara bustled in carrying her oversized purse and a Tupperware container. The smell of her famous cornbread filled the small office. Lord have mercy. You both look like you've been hit by a truck. She set the container down and pulled up another chair. When's the last time either of you ate? Neither answered. Aunt Clara clicked her tongue and started unpacking breakfast. Her movements were precise, but Darius could see the worry in her eyes. I'm thinking of forfeiting, Darius said quietly. The cornbread container hit the desk with a sharp crack. Like hell you are, Aunt Clara. Don't you, Aunt Clara me, she planted her hands on her hips. You don't leave the ring. Make them leave the table. That's what your daddy always said. They broke Keisha's wrist. Darius's voice cracked slightly. What's next? The academy's one thing, but these kids are stronger than you think. She cut in. And they're watching you. Every single one of them. What you do next teaches them more than any combat lesson. The door chimed again. Vanessa Reed walked in, carrying her laptop bag and what looked like radio equipment. Her face was tight with determination. Good. You're both here. She pulled up the last chair and opened her bag. We need to talk strategy, Vanessa. Darius started. No, you listen. She pulled out a small device that looked like a button. This is a high-quality microphone, completely undetectable. Records straight to a secure cloud server. Keisha leaned forward, interested despite her sling. Like in spy movies. Better. Vanessa smiled grimly because this is real. Elena Vargas called me last night. She can't help officially, but she's arranged to monitor the feed live from her office during all meetings with Lang. That's dangerous for her position. Darius said she knows. Vanessa's eyes were hard, but she's tired of watching good people get crushed by corrupt systems. We all are. Aunt Clara picked up the microphone, examining it carefully. How do we know they won't detect it? State-of-the-art tech used by actual investigative journalists in war zones. Vanessa pulled out more equipment. We'll test it today. Make sure the signal's clear. Darius watched them plan, his heart heavy with responsibility. The sun had climbed higher, throwing light across the academy floor where kids should have been training by now. Instead, the mats were empty, the heavy bags still. What if it makes things worse? He asked finally. Worse than a broken wrist. Keisha held up her sling. Worse than them trying to take everything you built. Sometimes, Aunt Clara said softly. You have to risk the fight to win the war. They spent the next hour testing the equipment. Vanessa showed them how the microphone could be sewn into a shirt collar or hidden in a tie clip. The sound quality was crystal clear, picking up even whispered conversations. Elena will be listening live, Vanessa explained. Recording everything. If Lang or his people slip up even once, Aunt Clara corrected. Not if. Pride always trips them up. Eventually around noon, more kids started showing up for their regular classes. They gathered around Keisha, signing her cast. Their young faces a mix of anger and determination. Darius watched them from his office, remembering why he'd started this academy in the first place. They're not just learning to fight, Aunt Clara said, following his gaze. They're learning to stand up. Big difference. Darius nodded slowly. He walked to the small bathroom attached to his office, staring at himself in the mirror. His reflection looked tired but unbeaten. Carefully he began wrapping his hands, the familiar ritual bringing focus. Round 1 starts before the bell, he whispered, the white gauze winding between his fingers. The wrapping technique his father had taught him years ago. Over, under, around each knuckle, protection and power working together. Behind him, he could hear Vanessa and Aunt Clara discussing timing and signals, Keisha adding her thoughts despite her injury. The morning light had turned sharp and clear, cutting across the academy floor like truth itself. Outside, a few elderly neighbors had already set up their folding chairs, keeping watch like guardian angels in sun hats and temple clothes. Darius finished wrapping his right hand, flexing his fingers slowly. The gauze was tight, but not restricting, just like his father had shown him. In the mirror, he could see Keisha watching him, the girl's good hand unconsciously mimicking the wrapping motion. Through the window, more kids were arriving for afternoon classes. Some carried signs they'd made. Titan, stands for us and can't stop won't stop. Their parents stood nearby, arms crossed, faces set with the same determination Darius felt, growing in his chest. The venue's backstage area hummed with tension. Camera crews jostled for position as Darius walked through the metal detector. His shirt collar concealing Vanessa's microphone. The security guard waved him through with a practiced motion. Aunt Clara stood nearby, her Bible clutched tight against her chest. She'd insisted on coming, saying she needed to keep prayer close to the proceedings. But Darius knew she was there to witness everything, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The weigh-in area buzzed with reporters and photographers. Their flashes created a constant strobe effect that made the room feel smaller than it was. Darius spotted Victor Lang in his signature cheap suit, phone pressed to his ear as he paced near the scale. Look who finally showed up. Ethan's voice cut through the noise. He was already shirtless, his abs gleaming with oil. A mock chain draped around his neck again. Thought you might chicken out after what happened to your girl. Darius kept his face neutral, though his jaw tightened slightly. He could feel the microphone pressing against his collarbone, reminding him to stay focused. Strip down, champ, the board doctor called out, let's get this done. As Darius removed his shirt, Ethan started a new round of taunts. Make sure you check him for weapons. You know how these thugs like to pack heat. Cameras clicked rapidly. Darius stepped onto the scale, eyes forward. 185.5, the official announced. Legal. Bet that's the first legal thing he's done all year. Ethan sneered, drawing nervous laughs from his entourage. In the corner, Vanessa pretended to check her phone while adjusting her recording equipment. She gave Darius an almost imperceptible nod. The feed was working. Lang's voice carried clearly as he continued his phone conversation. No, no, everything's set. Barrett knows the score. He walked closer to where Darius stood. Trust me, the odds are locked. We've got this under control. Ethan bounded onto the scale next, flexing for the cameras. 186 even, called the official. See that? Ethan grinned. I make weight clean, unlike some people who probably had to spit out their gold teeth. Darius remained silent, his stillness making Ethan's antics seem increasingly desperate. Several reporters shifted uncomfortably, their pens hesitating over notepads. What's wrong, Titan? Ethan pressed, stepping into Darius's space. Cottonmouth got your tongue. Aunt Clara made a small sound of disgust, but Darius's expression didn't change. He could see Lang still on his phone, now speaking in more hushed tones about guaranteed returns and smart money. The promoter's photographer called for the face-off. As Darius and Ethan stood chest to chest, the challenger's act grew more frenzied. Tomorrow night, boy, Ethan hissed, quiet enough that only Darius and the hidden mic could hear. I'm going to make you wish you stayed in your streets. Darius met his eyes steadily. You still don't understand what this is about, do you? Oh, I understand plenty. Ethan's smile turned ugly. I understand. You're about to learn your place. No, Darius said softly. Tomorrow, Truth walks out of that octagon. Something in his tone made Ethan's smile falter slightly. Behind them, Lang wrapped up his phone call. Don't worry about the board. Barrett's got more riding on this than anyone. The fix is solid. The photographers called for one last shot. As the flashes popped, Vanessa caught Darius's eye and mouthed silently, "We got him." Lang approached the fighters, his face gleaming with fake concern. Now, boys, let's keep this clean. We want a good, fair fight. Tomorrow. He laughed nervously as he said it, the sound hollow in the crowded room. Darius noticed a thin sheen of sweat on the promoter's upper lip. Aunt Clara stepped forward, her Bible still clutched tight. Oh, it'll be fair. All right, the Lord always makes sure of that. The room started to clear out, reporters hurrying to file their stories. Ethan's entourage led him away, still shouting insults over his shoulder. But they sounded weaker now, like air leaking from a punctured tire. Darius gathered his shirt and began to dress. The microphone had captured everything, every threat, every slur, and most importantly, every incriminating word from Lang's phone call. You okay? Vanessa asked quietly as she passed by, pretending to check her notes. Darius nodded once. He could feel the weight of tomorrow pressing down, but it felt different now. The truth had mass of its own. Aunt Clara touched his arm gently. Remember what your daddy used to say about men.